Hello, Oklahoma, clear from Nebraska. This is exciting. Today, I want to equip you with the knowledge that you need to eat confidently, and I want to empower you and give you the tools that you need to feel good about your food and nutrition choices. So, just like in the video that you watched, which I hope you found as funny as I do, we're bombarded every day with different messages about food and farming. And just like in the video, they might even vary from day to day what we hear, right? So let me pause. I'm Michaela Gasling. I'm from the Panhandle of Nebraska, or that's where I live. I'm from central Nebraska, but we live on my husband's family farm. We're the third generation of his family to live here and farm and ranch on this land. It's definitely a privilege to be able to do that. We grow wheat, field corn, a few soybeans, alfalfa, and we also raise cattle, beef cattle, and our kids who are currently 7, 5, and 2 years old. So like I said, I also grew up on a farm in the middle of Nebraska, a little bit different, but we raised mostly corn and cattle there. But then I went to college and then to grad school in a city of about 10,000. So my high school was super tiny. I graduated with 22 students. We were an agriculture community. Went to college at Chadron State College. Chadron is a town of about 10,000. And then I moved to the other end of the state to Omaha, Nebraska to go to grad school. I went to the University of Nebraska Medical Center. So I got to live in a big, big city for 3 years and experience some culture shock. But there I got my bachelor's degree in radiation science, and I'm an ultrasound technologist with that degree. So an ultrasound tech is the person who takes pictures of babies when moms are pregnant, and also about any other solid organ or vein or artery in the body. These days, you can probably ask Mr. Boyer about ultrasound. He's probably more familiar with it than he ever wanted to be. So I did that for 7 years full time, and then another 4 years part time before I was pregnant with our third baby, and we decided that I should stay home with our kids full time while they're little. So besides being a mom and a farm wife, I also am a blogger and a writer. I am a contributor to Her View from Home. It's an amazing website. And then I also own my own blog, cowgirlbootsandrunningshoes.com. And I also am a group fitness instructor. I instruct PiYo, which is a fusion of Pilates and yoga, except a lot faster and more fun and fun music. And then I instruct a kickboxing class called Core to Force. So that's kind of my outlet for my love of fitness. As you can probably guess from all of that and probably what Mr. Boyer told you, I'm a little bit of a health and fitness nut or enthusiast. And that combined with what we do for a living, farming and ranching, and just how fed up, pun intended, I started to get with all of the myths around food and farming that I started to notice and see, led me to take online classes so that I could get my nutrition coaching certification. And that just has really helped me be better equipped to help other people improve their relationship with food and gain more knowledge about food and nutrition. I have discovered through all of this, just through being a mom and going through my coaching certification, that eating healthy and feeding my family the same healthy foods doesn't have to be boring or expensive or complicated like a lot of people think. And I know I've discovered that a lot of families also struggle with this. So that's another reason that I started my blog, is just to kind of be a voice of reason in a world full of all these fad diets and messages about food that we are inundated with every day. So my passion really is for helping other people discover how easy and delicious and rewarding a healthy lifestyle can be. And I just really love food. So if any of you like recipes, you'll find lots of recipes on my blog too. a little bit more about myself. What else I do in my free time is there's not a lot of free time when I'm not helping on the farm, but I do love to run, and our family loves doing outdoor activities together. So we just went on vacation in Colorado, and we went hiking in the mountains. We also love biking and kayaking, swimming, etc. So that'll kind of come into play a little bit later, but let me get back to how I came to get to this position, how I got here. I've loved fitness and nutrition for probably about 13 years, but more probably on the fitness side. And just only a short while ago, really started paying attention to the nutrition side when I figured out just how much it impacts my, not just my fitness level, but my life, how I feel and how active I can be, etc. So then I started kind of paying more attention to all of the food and farming messages that we see out there. I kind of noticed how many of them were incorrect, and it really started to kind of, I don't know what the correct term is, just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, really bothers me that people who have never set foot on a farm or ranch pretend to be experts at farming or ranching. I'm sure any of you, if you have questions about, if your car breaks down, who do you ask? Not the dentist, right? You ask a mechanic. Or, if you are sick, you ask a doctor, right? You don't ask your mechanic. So I really just wanted to be a space and a person that people could trust and know that they can come to for answers from someone who actually has lived experience on a farm and ranch. And you'll never find me pretending to be an expert. I get a ton of my information from registered dietitians. They are the nutrition experts, but if I don't know the answer to something, I can point you in the direction of someone who does know that answer, and not just relying on Google or, kind of unreliable sources like that. So that's kind of where all of this got started. And now, after a little bit of rambling, I would like to make my points for you, leave you with that good information that that I hope you'll find useful. If not now, then you can tuck it away for the future when you are responsible for the grocery shopping or the meal prepping, things like that. So there are a few food and farming myths that I hear probably the most often, and so that's what I'm going to touch on today. And I have my list over here so that I don't forget any of them, because they're kind of my favorite ones to talk about. And kind of like in the video, we're all just bombarded with messages every day, right? About food and farming and nutrition, and some of them are pretty blatant and obvious, and some of them are more subtle, and a lot of them are just you walk into a grocery store and no longer can you just pick up a simple package of food, right? Like, it has so many labels on it and so many, gluten-free and fat-free, etc., etc., dairy-free, organic, non-GMO. I understand why it's so confusing for people. So we're going to go through a few of those food labels today, and I hope that you guys find it helpful and make notes. You'll be able to ask questions at the end of this. I'm looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are and what your questions are. So I am going to start with the organic label, because I know it's a really common one that I'm confident you probably have seen. Excuse me. So, what does organic mean? Organic doesn't mean healthier. It doesn't mean more nutritious. It doesn't mean safer. The organic label simply is a production process, a food production process, a farming method. It doesn't tell you anything about how the food was raised, like if it's talking about if it's on an animal product like beef or pork or chicken. It doesn't tell you anything about how those animals were treated. So I just want to read you the USDA definition of what organic is. The United States Department of Agriculture defines organic as just a food production process, and anyone who wants to use that organic label on their food has to be certified and has to comply with certain federal regulations, which so if it's not organic, it's conventional, conventionally raised, which is what most food is conventionally raised. But both of them are highly regulated and have to follow rules for safe production practices. Both organic and conventional processes care for the soil. All food is inspected, so there's probably more that's the same than that's different about conventional and organic. But just something kind of like I touched on, I'll see a lot of people say, if there's two products on the shelf that look very similar, but this is, say, like an organic juice box, and this one doesn't have the organic label, people will assume that that organic one is healthier, when in fact, if you look at the nutrition label, they're probably exactly the same. Sometimes the organic one even has more added sugar, so it might be considered less healthy. So my point is, an organic label doesn't necessarily mean that it's a healthier product. And I've also heard the argument that organic, say like fruits and vegetables, have more nutrients in them than conventionally raised fruits or vegetables. And that is also not true, and that is backed up by science, which is very important to me with my medical and science background. Obviously, science is very important to me, and I read a lot of research, and I rely on scientists and researchers a lot. I don't rely on celebrities or Google to give me my food or nutrition information, right? So, what else? Some other myths about that organic label. You might hear that organic foods are grown without pesticides, so they have to be healthier, right? Well, again, that is not true. There's a big, not exaggerating, it's a big long list of pesticides that are approved to use in organic farming. Most of them, they can't use synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, etc., which means man-made. So interestingly enough, they have to use organic. What word am I using? What word am I looking for? They have to use natural pesticides or physical methods of like weed control. So literally like hand pulling weeds, things like that. But what they use for fertilizer is often cow manure. That's their organic fertilizer. So it's kind of interesting to me, and a lot of people are shocked to hear that that's what organic farm uses for fertilizer. So tuck that away. What else? How about, I could talk about organic food all day long because I feel like it's become such a privileged thing. And by privileged, I am literally talking in this case, I'm talking about people with disposable income to spend. It's kind of become like a superiority thing, like, oh, well, I only buy organic foods, or I only feed organic foods to my family. And again, if you choose to spend your hard-earned income on organic foods, more power to you. I have friends who are organic farmers, and that's awesome. We need all methods, we need choices, so that's awesome. But I don't like when people use their food choices to shame other people or make other people feel less than for choosing other things. Um, Something you'll probably notice when you're looking at those, when you're comparing the organic and conventional products beside each other in the grocery store, the organic one is probably sometimes twice as expensive as the conventional one. So I always tell people I just prefer to spend my extra money on cowgirl boots or running shoes. That's just my choice. That's what I choose because I know that the products are equally as nutritious and equally safe and equally delicious. So, just a choice thing. Um, how about genetically modified foods? You'll see it as GMOs, sometimes just GM, GE, genetically engineered. You're probably familiar with all of those things. Uh, the little butterfly label is how it's denoted on food labels. And so that's another myth that I hear a lot. Um, and I'm not really trying to get into like a pro or anti GMO debate. I like to present to people the facts about the safety and what genetically modified actually means. Because once you understand it, I feel like then you're not afraid of it once you understand it. So it kind of parallels the organic label in that something that I hear a lot is just like, gosh, even olives or artichokes, or it's hard to go to the grocery store now and not see the butterfly label on everything. So I'll just use like olives, for example, something that I've noticed lately. Can of olives that say non GMO and a can that says GMO. Um, Sorry, back up. So many labels. A can that says non GMO and then just a can without a label on it. So this can is much more expensive with the butterfly on it than the can without. But the thing that does make me angry about this right now is that there are no genetically modified olives. So it wasn't such a big deal to me when there were just a few products with the butterfly on it, uh, because there are only, now there's 10. There are 10 products, 10 crops that are genetically modified. But like I said, you almost can't find anything that doesn't have the butterfly on it. So, water, seriously. Artichokes, olives, oranges, just everything these days has that little butterfly symbol on it when no, no genetically modified orange exists. So it doesn't need to have that label on it and be more expensive and make you feel like, oh no, I bought the oranges that don't have that label on them, so they're genetically modified and they're harmful for me and etc. That is simply not true. So again, I know that I ramble about these things, but my point is genetically modified foods are not scary. Thousands and thousands and thousands of studies have shown their safety and that they don't differ from their counterpart. So, like I said, the thing that parallels with organic is a lot of people will tell me that, well, it has the non GMO verified label on it, so I know that it's healthier and safer than the other product. When, again, it's not true. It's just a misrepresentation of our product. So, kind of like the organic label being just a farming or a production method, genetic modification is just a process of plant breeding It's not something that's actually in your food. Um, so I know this comes with the a term I use a lot is fear mongering. When people are trying to make you afraid of something, uh, people, marketers, grocery stores, etc., try to make you afraid of genetically modified organisms so that you will buy their more expensive product with the butterfly label on it. But when you know that it's just a process and it's not an ingredient, it's not, you see like, what is it, a tomato or something with a needle in it, and they're talking about genetic modification. That is, it's insane. It's actual, it's just insanity to represent it that way because it's not something that's injected into a product. It's not an ingredient that's added. Um, so I can give Mr. Boyer a couple of my favorite genetically modified organism truth websites if you guys want to explore it a little more. But um, that's just that's my 2 cents on genetic modification. You could spend days and weeks reading about it, learning about it, etc. The 10 crops or plants, products that are genetically modified, and this doesn't mean all of them. Like have you heard about the new Arctic apple? It's the newest genetically modified food, and it's just one brand, one. Oh, I'm having a senior moment right now. Um, there's Fuji apples, there's Granny Smith apples, there's 100 types of apples. The Arctic apples are the only ones that they have genetically modified to not get brown after you slice them, and I think that that's amazing, especially if you have kids. You slice a bunch of apples and put them in the fridge, and then they're brown, and then your kids say, "Ew, I don't want to eat those," and then they go to waste or not because I eat them. But I think it's amazing. Um, Apples, potatoes, papaya, squash like zucchini, and yes, I'm reading a list. Canola, sugar beets, alfalfa, cotton, soybeans, and corn. Those are the only genetically modified crops. So, why do you walk into a grocery store and everything has the butterfly label on it? I find it kind of insulting as a consumer that they just think that I'm not knowledgeable enough to know. But anyway, let's continue with another one of my favorite labels. And I probably spend the most time talking about this one, probably because we raise beef cattle, but and maybe just because of my position as a fitness instructor or someone in the fitness industry, something that I discuss with a lot of my, I don't know if you'd call them colleagues, but I guess fellow like fitness and nutrition coaches is grass finished versus green finished beef. So, you all are in this class, and I applaud you for wanting to learn more about agriculture and all that this class entails. I know that you probably will spend a lot more time talking about grass finished beef and green finished beef. So a lot of times the label just says grass fed, and that also kind of makes me laugh because almost all cattle are grass fed for the majority of their lives. So it kind of makes me chuckle when I see that grass fed label on that package of beef that is more expensive than the package without it, because I know that all cattle are grass fed. So, what they really mean though with that label is grass finished. They mean that the cattle were never fed grain, um, as opposed to uh, cattle who are fed grass and their mother's milk for the first 6 months of their life, and then usually go on to continue eating grass but also get supplemented with grain, whether that be corn or distiller's grains or etc. etc. So the big thing, especially in the fitness and nutrition world with the grass finished and grain finished beef, it just comes up being about the nutrition of it. So you will hear that grass fed is healthier because of it has so many more omega-3 fatty acids, which if you guys don't have a lot of nutrition background, which that's okay because not everyone is a food science nerd, but omega-3 fatty acids are the ones found in like fish or fish oil supplements, salmon, nuts, avocados, things like that. So there is actually a little bit of a difference in the omega. So we're talking about the healthy omega-3 fatty acid fats. There is a little bit of a difference in between the grass finished and the grain finished. The grass finished does have a little more, and if you want to know the numbers, it's about 50 milligrams versus 20 milligrams. So you think, oh wow, 30 milligrams, but we're talking about how can I put this in terms? Milligrams is a tiny, 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 tiny amount. So 30 milligrams is a very insignificant difference. To put that into context, something like salmon has like 1100 milligrams of omega-3s. So that's why 30 milligrams is not a significant difference. It's not a reason to choose grass-fed over grain-fed, as you might see on the label. So, moving on. Still talking about beef though. Beef, whether it's grass-finished or grain-finished, is a really great source of lots of essential vitamins and minerals, nutrients, protein, zinc, iron, B vitamins, etc. And it's not a good source of those omega-3 fatty acids like salmon is. So, 1,500 milligrams came to me. 1,500. So you're comparing salmon to the amount in beef. 30 milligrams is a tiny, insignificant difference. So if you want those omega-3 fatty acids in your diet, which we all need, you choose salmon. But when you're looking for a good source of some of the other vitamins and minerals that you can't find in salmon, you choose lean beef. That's why everyone, the government, registered dietitians, everyone talks about eating a varied diet. You know, you don't just eat salmon every day, or you don't just eat beef every day. You vary it. Variety is good. So, what else about beef? The grass-fed is a marketing label. Again, another thing that I read or that I hear is saying that the grass-fed or grass-finished cattle were just treated more humanely, so that's why I choose the grass-fed label. When in fact, again, it has nothing to do with how the animals are treated. Like I was talking earlier about organic, you can't tell anything about how those cattle were treated just from the labels. So, and that kind of with all of those things. So, organic and the GMOs and the grass finished versus grain finished beef in this case, something that all of those have in common is food safety. Those labels, along with not being an indicator of how the animals were raised, the other thing that they all have in common is Because all of the foods on your grocery store shelves are safe and nutritious. We have in America, it can be a blessing and a curse. We have the most abundant food supply and the most highly regulated food supply in the world. Like, we have so many regulating bodies, and their rules and policies are so strict, and food gets inspected at so many points and by so many different regulating bodies that if it's on your shelf, it's safe. And you can argue, okay, well, what about the salmonella that was found or the E. coli that was found in the broccoli sprouts? Well, to me, that is a great indicator that our checkpoints, and all of those regulating bodies, that means they're doing a great job. The fact that they found it relatively quickly and pulled those products and took care of it, investigated it, found the source, or even if they're not able to narrow down the source, that's incredible, right? That they can find it, pull those products. Yeah, a few people probably got sick, but that's way better than a million people getting sick from it because nobody regulates it, nobody inspects it, nobody checks it. So that's my 2 cents on that. And also, a lot of the food safety responsibility falls on consumers. What you do in your own kitchen. Do you wash your fruits and vegetables? Do you thoroughly cook your meats to the recommended temperatures? Things like that. So I think consumers have to take a lot more responsibility for that part too. But anyway, I hope that we covered a lot of common food labels that you see and that you might have questions about. And I hope that you have some questions for me to answer or try to answer. And if I don't know the answer, I will point you in the right direction to someone who does. And I think that's what I have for you until the questions. So thank you for giving me your time.